Before we jump into this episode, I want to remind you that while Caitlin and Sophia are dietitians, we're not your dietitians. This means the information shared in the Food Freedom Fertility podcast is intended to entertain, educate, and inform. It is not a substitute for medical care. This information is not intended to diagnose, manage, or treat disease. Always consult with your doctor before making any changes. Welcome to a very special midweek episode of Food Freedom Fertility where we are doing a Win Wednesday. This is an episode, if you are not abreast to the new developments here at Food Freedom Fertility, this is a midweek episode where we meet with women who have followed our podcast, used our program, worked with us, or are just generally fangirls who follow us along and follow our advice, who have a major win to share with you, because we know what it's like when you are walking this road, trying to conceive, trying to heal, doing all the things, and you meet somebody who has crossed a finish line that you are still running towards, and you want to be like, girl, tell me how you did it. And so that is what we are doing today. We have got Nicki here, who has worked with Caitlin, and she is going to share with us her journey and what she did to get where she is today. So welcome, Nicki.
Hi, nice to be here.
Thanks for being here, Nicki. You might not know this, but Nicki was like an influencer before influencers were really called influencers.
Really? I didn't know that.
Tell us a little bit about just kind of your journey online before we hop into the PCOS and fertility stuff.
Oh, geez. Well, full disclaimer, I am not that anymore. I eventually deleted that account just because it was getting to be too much.
Okay, what is too much? I want to know the extent of this influential presence. How many followers did you have?
Like 15,000 maybe. Like,
okay,
it wasn't
cool.
Like, as far as influencers go, it wasn't a lot, but like I have a full-time job. I have elderly grandparents, and like I'm very involved in my family and everything, and like just the trolls and everything online I was like, I'm not doing this anymore.
Yeah, I hear you. Okay.
But,
well, thanks for sharing that. I don't want to derail from us actually hearing about your health journey.
It's okay. So I did keto for a long time. So my quote unquote influencer page was called Memoirs of a Keto Chick. And it just like talked about that journey. And then I had a post go viral with like, quote unquote viral, with like 10,000 people liked it. It ended up on like the posts you may like drop downs. And so like everything went crazy. And then I had like people sending me like keto things to try and food and drinks and everything. And eventually and then of course the pandemic hit and I changed jobs and I ended up, not keto anymore. So I tried to shift it to like a PCOS getting healthy page, and it just I just couldn't keep up with it. So I deleted it, and now I have a private personal Instagram account, and I am much happier.
How peaceful for you.
I just love that journey, frankly.
I do too, and like, I love your very on-brand avocado earrings.
Oh, thank you. Yes, my friend made these for me. I also have bacon and eggs.
That's adorable.
So
cute.
1 piece of bacon and 1 fried egg.
One thing that I think is really fun just about getting to know somebody new is like people come on and they tell their stories, and it seems like it's the only thing about them that's important. And that's so not true about Nicki. Like, Nicki is a devoted daughter. Like, in the pandemic, she's making homemade granola and bringing it to her dad, and who had long COVID, right? Nicki is an accomplished singer, right? Like, tell us what kind of singing you do. I mean, this isn't just like singing.
No, I have a degree in operatic vocal performance.
I knew you were going to say opera. I could just tell.
Yeah.
I just knew.
I'm a trained opera singer. I'm a mezzo-soprano. I also have experience in musical theater. And for fun in the summer, I do the anthems at local sports games.
Oh,
So
that is
that's
fun.
super fun.
All right, so what's your current favorite musical, or maybe your all-time favorite musical?
All-time favorite musical is Sweeney Todd. And I'm going to New York in July. My husband and I are going to New York in July, and we both almost cried when we found out Sweeney Todd was not going to be extended for a third time because we were so sad that we are missing it. But we bought tickets to go see The Outsiders, which I know absolutely nothing about aside from the fact that I loved the book growing up. So
Yeah, I didn't
I'm
even
very
know it was a
pumped
musical.
about that.
I liked the book too.
Yeah,
Wow.
it just opened, nominated for the Tony. Yeah, it's super pumped.
All I know about Sweeney Todd is what I learned from watching that one episode of The Office about Sweeney Todd.
Oh, I haven't seen that.
You haven't seen that?
Oh,
Oh, one of the characters is in a local theater
No,
production
I
of
have to go
Sweeney
look it
Todd,
up.
and the whole office goes and sees him, and he like sings, and it's actually a good episode. It's fun. All right. Well, those of you
That's
who are
awesome.
listening who are Office fans, you know what I'm talking about. My husband calls it Sweetie Todd. Like it's like
awesome.
that's the name
So,
of the pie
Nikki-
shop because it's like making sweets, a Sweetie Todd. Like a hot toddy, it's a
that's
Sweetie
funny.
Todd, and it's a pie. Okay, anyway, enough musical nerddom. Moving on. Nikki, you have made huge strides when it comes to your health, your PCOS management, and that is why our listeners are here. So let's jump into that.
Yes. So I started trying to conceive in October of 2020, right after my husband and I got married. I've known that I have had PCOS since I was 15 years old. My grandma was a nurse and recognized that something was very, very wrong and pushed for a diagnosis. And she is my angel because I don't know anybody else who knew that they had PCOS that young. So she definitely helped me out, but I always kind of knew in the back of my head that, it's possible it's going to be hard to get pregnant. And I'll add a disclaimer here. I am still very much in the middle of my trying to become a mom journey. So the end of my journey, as you'll hear it today, is not, and she had 4 kids, the end. I'm still very much in the middle of it.
I love that. Thank you for coming on and sharing like the ongoing journey and not just the crossed at the whatever finish
I think
line.
it's important to celebrate. Yeah, it's important to celebrate the wins along the way. Because I don't think a lot of people do. They're so focused on the end goal that they lose track that there's like important milestones that you often have to hit to get to the end goal. So I started trying to conceive in October of 2020, wasn't working. I had been following actually both of you online for a while. And Caitlin did a post about she was opening space up in her fertility course. So I did that. And then I did the other one, the Hormone Academy. So I've done both of those and learned so much about how to eat to manage my PCOS and the PCOS plate and how important it is to balance your macros and making sure that protein is your focus. So I took that knowledge and I started working with a trainer here where I am in Canada who also knows a little bit about the infertility community and was able to like sort of guide me with PCOS in mind of doing weighted workouts and like staying away from like the high intensity stuff to just sort of what does my body actually need and how does it thrive. In the process of all this, we became patients at our local fertility clinic. My husband is kind of like right on the edge of normal. His numbers kind of go back and forth. We decided that we were going to try letrozole. So oh God, how many rounds of letrozole did I do? At least 15 over the course of everything. I started on 2.5 milligrams and nothing happened. And then I did 5 milligrams for 2 cycles and it worked. And then it stopped. And then 7.5 and it worked for 2 cycles and then stopped. And then I've been on 10 milligrams of letrozole on and off.
Dang, that's a hefty
for probably
dose.
About a year and a half.
Then you haven't had any ovarian hyperstimulation syndrome?
Not on the letrozole. Like I can feel it. Like I'll get pangs, and I'll definitely have like ovarian pain around ovulation, and I'm like very aware. Like I can be like, oh, right, he just ovulated, right? Like I'm very aware that it's happening, but I've never been sick from it. So we tried that, didn't work, never seen a positive pregnancy test. We decided last May that we were going to do an IUI. Discovered when we went for the IUI that my husband definitely does not respond well to stress. So the numbers were not where we had hoped they would be. Went forward with the IUI anyway, because when the nurse came in and told us that, I was literally like in the stirrups.
Ready.
And like over the course of all of this, still working like Caitlin's program and making sure that my macros are balanced. And by the time we did our IUI, I had gone from 375 pounds to about 290 when we did our IUI. And then while I did that, I had started running, and I was actually training for a half marathon. But the entire time that I was running, I stopped losing weight. I completely plateaued.
That is such a common PCOS running story. That was, I mean, Caitlin, you had like the same situation, didn't you? Yeah.
So we talked about it, and we decided that we weren't going to waste any more time or energy or money on IUIs, and that because I was now ovulating regularly with the help of letrozole, still wasn't happening. We were officially like moved from the ovulatory dysfunction category of infertility to the unknown infertility bracket. So we decided that we were going to do IVF. So we started prepping for IVF in September of last year. So I was actually on a round of birth control, getting ready to do an egg retrieval in October. And I found out by accident in a Facebook support group online for my clinic that they had a BMI restriction that they didn't tell me about. So I would have gone to my egg retrieval and had to have done the egg retrieval completely without sedation because they would not have given it to me. Yeah. So
they would not have given you sedation because you didn't meet a BMI requirement, but they were willing to retrieve?
Yes. So they would have given me Adderall, they said, to like calm me down, but then they would have actually done the retrieval with no. Yeah.
You sure?
I know.
To
so
calm
you're
you down.
Be in severe pain. Yeah, severe pain. Adderall, whatever the anxiety medication Ativan. Okay, so not Adderall.
Okay, big difference. Okay. That's so funny.
I was close.
I'm like, Adderall is like what you take during finals week to like stay up and like, you know, that's an ADD med. It's a super stimulant. That's so funny. I was like, you're just going to be like chatting him up and talking about like, you know what, you should really start your own restaurant. Like that's Adderall. That's really funny.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
No.
Sorry.
Okay, so not that one. Ativan.
Ativan.
So, and I said to them, yeah. And like, I don't know how many of your listeners are in Canada, I'm in Canada versus US, but we like, it's conscious sedation. So like you're awake through your entire procedure. You're just high.
Dinged out.
So what my clinic does is fentanyl sedation. So like you're awake, you kind of know what's going on, but chances are after you sleep it off, you're not going to remember anything. And the way my clinic works is it's all the nurses and the doctors who do the sedation. There is no anesthesiologist on staff. So the rules dictate that if your BMI is over 40, and at the time my BMI was 45, I could not receive, like they were not allowed to give me the sedation. Yeah. And so I said, well, why not? And they said, well, because patients with a higher BMI tend to have respiratory issues. And I was like, I ran 16 kilometers, 10 miles this morning. Like I have no worries about that. Like I don't have sleep apnea. I'm a distance runner. Like I'm just big. Like that's the problem. And they said, well, and it can also take a little bit longer for it to clear your body. And I was like, so keep me there half an hour longer. Like I don't understand.
They're
why
not
this
making
make
sense decisions. They're just following protocols.
Just to sort of play devil's advocate for this, is that these medications, even though your body is bigger overall, you still only have one liver, two kidneys. Like, your elimination organs and your vital organs are the same as somebody who's in a 150-pound body, right? And so to give you enough medicine to sedate somebody bigger, they have to, it's a larger load on your lungs, your heart, your liver, your kidneys that are not different. And so as someone who has honestly seen horrible, tragic outcomes from these kinds of sedation things, just to play devil's advocate, it may have been good that you didn't have a non-anesthesiologist putting you down for this procedure, because what they should have done is gotten a freaking anesthesiologist. I mean, let's be real. That's really what should have happened.
Yeah. Right.
But if that's just not an option to have an anesthesiologist, it could have been life-saving that they didn't do this.
But there's also, I'm sure, medical tests that you can do, that you can run on patients and not just deny them this care.
Yeah, well,
also,
or have a conversation with them earlier on and let them be a decision maker for their own course of treatment, and not just spring this on you.
Yeah, that really bothered myself and my husband. There is a policy that exists at your clinic that directly pertains to us, that you did not communicate to us ahead of time. So I gave you a deposit, and I decided that I was going to do this cycle without having all the necessary information to make an informed decision.
Amen.
Totally.
That's the part that doesn't work. And as far as I'm concerned, that leads towards medical discrimination. If you're not willing to take a look at the individual patient and just go by an arbitrary number that has been debunked, the BMI has been debunked multiple times in multiple medical studies, and it is not a true measure of health, you can't make that a generalized rule unless you're willing to go in and test each individual person to see if they can actually handle this sedation.
Right, because this discrimination is happening on the other side, and total medical issues are being completely ignored. They're very happy to do IVF on somebody with a 17 BMI who is not 100%. Healthy enough to be pregnant. And what needs to be addressed is you're not healthy enough to be pregnant. And so let's stop taking their money and stop doing procedures we know are going to have negative outcomes on the other side of it. Like, you're willing to do it on this side, but you're not willing to do it on the other side. That doesn't make sense.
Yeah. So that's the part that really rubbed me the wrong way. And especially because, like, my doctor knew, like, I've been actively trying to lose weight, and I have lost I've lost 75 pounds at this point now, or 85 pounds. Like, if he had said, you know what, you're about, I think at the time I was 290 and I had to be under 255 was the goal. So if he had said, you know what, you have to go lose 45 more pounds, I would have been like, okay, cool, see you in 6 months. Right. Right. Like, and I would have worked my ass off and I would have gotten there. So we made the decision to cancel that cycle, just based on having once we got all the necessary information. And I, at that time, started working with a trainer, threw myself back into eating properly according to my PCOS guidelines that I follow religiously. And now I am at, as of this morning, 226.
What?
In weight.
So what total number is that you've lost then?
Like 150?
148 pounds.
You're so amazing, Nicki.
That is crazy. Yeah. And so not crazy, like crazy awesome, not like you're crazy for losing weight, but like, that's great. And you did this so the listeners can understand. Was this medically managed, like with medicines? No, this was just you balancing your blood sugar and moving your body, managing stress, getting sleep, taking some supplements.
So I do take 2 medications. I have a hypothyroid, so I take Synthroid. And then I am on a low dose of metformin that my doctor put me on. So couple those medications coupled with I'm on inositol, the one that starts with a U, Caitlin, that you told me to take for egg quality. Ubiquinol. CoQ10. I take a prenatal. I'm going through them all in my head.
I actually made you fill out a list before we did this. I didn't realize, listeners, yes. I sent her like the wrong part of the right form and part of the wrong form to actually schedule this. And it was like, are you willing to pay in full for your session? And she's like, what? But that's for like people that are like paying me for, anyway, it was the wrong thing, but.
Yeah.
But it did end up in us having a list of your medications and supplements, so that's good.
It did. Yeah. So those plus working with my trainer, shout out to Danielle, she's awesome. I do weights I do 3 weighted workouts a week, and I walk at least 10,000 steps every day. I really do like running, so she's letting me do like 15-minute runs every time I do my weights workouts. And I said, can I do more? And she was like, no.
Yeah.
For now, we're going to keep it here. And I was like, okay. Yeah. So that's what I've been doing. And then we went in March. So I wanted a buffer of like, I didn't want to be like, okay, I'm 255. I can do the egg retrieval now. I wanted a buffer because I know I'm going to gain water weight when I start stims. Like I just know that's going to happen. So I'm at about a 30. Pretty much everyone. I'll be at about a 30-pound buffer. And they said you could probably bank on like gaining like between 8 and 12 pounds, which is probably for me, it'll be more like 12 or 15 because that's just my body. But like if I have that like comfort, like insurance essentially of so that I can still like be safe in the procedure with the fentanyl. So we went in for an appointment in March to just like recheck in with our doctor and make sure everything was going well. And for the first time in my entire life of doing blood work, I had a normal hormone panel.
Wow.
From start to finish.
Beautiful.
And I have never had that before. Not once. My entire life.
It's amazing, Nicki.
What an accomplishment.
So I would say that is my win, the biggest win, number 1. I would say number 2 is the weight loss, not just because it's weight loss and not just because I'm smaller, but because literally everything is easier to do.
I'd imagine.
Everything. Talk about those everythings. I'm sure they're just the daily things, but like what everything.
Like bending down to tie your shoes and picking up something you dropped.
Totally. Going up and down the stairs is easier. Playing with my 2-year-old nephew, who is a very active little boy, is easier. We dug out a part of our yard to make a garden and discovered that 2 people before us who owned the house had rock in the entire backyard. So we had found 6 inches of sand that we had to dig out. So I was able to help my husband with that. And like that is not something I ever would have been able to do before. I would have been tired. My knees would have been so sore. And like I'm not trying to body shame anyone who's in a bigger body and completely happy and content and healthy with who they are. That was not me. I was not happy and content with who I was, not because society told me that I needed to be thinner, but because I knew that weight loss as a symptom of PCO or weight gain as a symptom of PCOS, and the fact that I was bigger and was gaining weight meant that my PCOS was not balanced.
Yeah.
So
totally.
I have a couple questions I kind of want to probe you, but let's take a minute and hear for a sponsor of this episode, and then we'll come back and answer some more questions. So you know me. I love efficiency, but I also love good food, and I don't want to compromise. One thing I love about the Caraway cookware set is that the pots and pans can go straight from your cooktop into your oven and vice versa. So one thing that I love about this cookware is I can start a dish. Like recently I made this sausage and penne pasta. and I cooked the pasta in bone broth on my stove. I cut up sausage and some other vegetables. I poured in some red sauce. I stirred it all together. I sprinkled cheese on top, and then I threw it in my oven just for a couple minutes at 350 to melt that cheese on top and reheat up that cooked through sausage. And it was a complete meal. I didn't have to do more than one dish. It was amazing. So if you want cookware that's versatile and chemical free, check out Caraway.
And just as a reminder, their iconic cookware set comes with the saute pan, the fry pan, Dutch oven, saucepan, lids for everything, a canvas lid holder, and a magnetic pan rack for storage. It is the ultimate kitchen setup, and it will save you $150 versus buying the items individually. Plus, if you visit carawayhome.com/FFF10, you can take an additional 10% off your purchase. This deal is exclusive for our listeners, so go to carawayhome.com/FFF10 or use code FFF10 at checkout. Caraway, non-toxic cookware made modern.
Nicki, thanks for being so open about your journey. I think that I know a lot of PCOS listeners are listening right now, and they're going to be really inspired by the perseverance and commitment that you've had. As having PCOS, there is a lot of difficulty with making food choices and feeling comfortable around food. And a lot of that has to do with some underlying hormonal things that go on in our body, like leptin resistance and insulin resistance, both of which can lead you to feeling more hungry, even though you may have eaten a completely nutritionally adequate meal. And I know that kind of working through portioning and learning macros was really helpful to you. Would you be willing to talk a little bit with our listeners about any kind of disordered patterns of eating and maybe how, nature, we know there's some of this hormonal imbalance, but maybe there's a nurture component and just lifestyle adaptations that may have played a role for you?
For sure. Yeah, I definitely have dealt with binge eating disorder. So eating for comfort, eating just to like heal emotional stress and trauma. And it definitely would stem from probably some traumas from childhood. Also some learned behaviors from childhood, I think. You did good on your math test. Let's go get ice cream. Oh, you're feeling sad. Oh, let's have some chips or do nachos for dinner to make you feel better. So you like bring those patterns into adulthood, but then all of a sudden, I think as an adult too, you're the one buying the food and you're the one making the food, and you don't have that other adult being like, okay, one Sunday, not 2 or 5. And so working through how to manage that was hard. I definitely did a couple years of Overeaters Anonymous, trying to figure out and I have tools from that. I would recommend to anybody if that they think they're dealing with that it's a really good resource. But yeah, and like working through with a therapist to try to like come up with other ways to cope and to not just go to the food, but also like it's important. We're talking about wins at the beginning throughout your journey to celebrate the wins. It's important to come up with self-care and wins that don't revolve around treating yourself with food.
Yeah, and finding other sources of pleasure in life, because food is a source of pleasure. It is.
Yeah,
and I'm glad. I never want food to not be a source of pleasure. I mean, Caitlin and I both, we love to cook, we love to shop, we love new things, we love trying things. There is inherently pleasure in this, but when this becomes the only source of pleasure in your life, you're not having play, fun, laughter, friendship, you're not having competition, you're not having, all these other things in life that are sources of pleasure and fun. It makes it to where it's almost like you're in jail, right? And like the only thing you have to look forward to is that next meal coming through the slot. And that's such an important piece. And that's a lot of like what I'm hearing in your story as you're talking is like having more pleasure and joy in life, to where that's not the only thing Because I think that goes unaddressed a lot as people are like, oh, well, I'm an emotional eater. And that's true and valid, but increasing other sources of pleasure and joy in your life makes it to where you don't only turn to food all the time for that.
Yeah, 100%. And like, I can give you an example. This is from a few years ago. When I hit a certain goal, I've always wanted to go zip lining, and I've always been over the weight restriction for that. And then I was under the weight restriction, and I rewarded myself with going zip lining with friends. So like,
so awesome.
Find things like that don't
Absolutely.
revolve, so that you're
I'll
sort
stand
of like
on the ground and
training that
wave at you as you
behavior
go
out of
by.
yourself.
That scares the bejesus out of me.
I don't know if I would do it
cheer
again.
you on from the ground.
Yeah, it was kind of scary, but I'm glad I did it. But like, you're training that behavior out of yourself so that you're like, woo, I'm celebrating. We're going to get pizza. Like, cool. But like, what are you, like, how can you celebrate that without bringing food into it and like train that behavior out of yourself?
Yeah, new ways to celebrate.
Like, I was just thinking, emotional connectiveness is something that I've been learning to treat myself with. Like, let's find a joy in some level of intimacy, not just with your spouse, but with friendships. And like, even my children, I've been like, okay, at the end of the day, I'm going to do something really fun with each of my children for 5 minutes. And that's going to be just a sweet moment for us. And Sophia and I just got back from being together, and I went straight from one family event to another family event. And I saw someone that had been really planning this event. She seemed really frazzled and stressed, and we said hi. And then about 5 minutes later, I went and sought her out in between tasks she was doing. And I was like, let me give you a hug. And so she gave me kind of a quick hug, and I just kept holding her. And I was like, you're getting more than 7 seconds of this, because I need to give you an oxytocin hit. Like, you're stressed out right now, and let me hug you. And I'm going to use my nervous system and my touch to calm you down, 65-year-old aunt of my husband, but like, not only can you reward yourself with this or find ways to nourish mind, body, and spirit, but you can do that for other people too. You can teach them that there are other ways to calm down. There are other ways to feel joy. There are other ways to feel connected than just food. And that's really powerful. Nicki, can you talk to us a little bit about practical things that helped you move from binge eating tendencies to something else? So you told us changing the reward, getting under a certain weight, and then doing like a zip line. But what's like a day-to-day thing if somebody's listening to this going, that's me, I just feel like I can't control myself and I need to do something? What's like something that was helpful for you on the day-to-day kind of practical side?
Honestly, your meditations that you had as part of your courses really helped me a lot. And every time that I would want to go to food, they really helped. Also, and it's such a cliche, and like every therapist will tell you to do it, but like journaling really also helped, because it's just a way to like express the emotion without doing the thing. Yeah, going to food. I walk a lot. Like, I love walking. I live in a beautiful neighborhood. There's lots of trails. There's lots of parks. I found a gym that I could go to in the winter because Canada, that has a track, because I hate walking on a treadmill. I find it very monotonous and boring. So
yeah, and it's like
the
like
track at the gym is very helpful.
Sound.
Yeah, it's like no. So yeah, putting my energy into that. Also, like setting little goals for myself around those things. So like, if I'm walking, maybe last time I did 2 kilometers, this time I'm going to do 2.5, or like I did 2 kilometers in half an hour. Maybe this time it's going to be 25 minutes. So just like setting goals for yourself.
And yesterday you did 10 kilometers, right? I saw on your social media, like,
dang girl, a 10K.
Yeah. 10K,
and you talked about it as self-care. You said I really needed time with myself, and I went for a really long walk.
Yeah. And like, I feel bad sometimes spending time with myself because I don't have time to like spend with friends a lot of the time, but I'm learning that sometimes you just need to be alone, and that is like self-care and so important. So that's something that I had to figure out as well. But like also sometimes spending time with friends, finding those safe people that you can reach out to or just like have a conversation with when you're wanting to do a binge. And even if you can be totally honest with them and be like, hey, all I want to do is rip open this giant bag of chips right now and eat the entire thing in one sitting. Just like distract me. And then you can just have a conversation, and you can, if you forget about the craving and like focus on something else, it's much easier.
It does pass. Isn't that amazing? It does pass. And there are so many like emotional regulation things you can do. You can breathe, you can hold an ice cube, you can slam a pillow, like there's stuff you can do.
Yeah.
And it actually, the intense, it's not like you're never going to not like chips. Like that's always going to sound good to eat.
Totally.
But that like intense urge that's like almost out of your body, that like your all reason goes aside and your primal eat brain is like the only thing online. That intense urge actually does pass, and you can learn to wait it out. And it actually doesn't take that long. It's not like hours you spend in that place. It's minutes.
No. It's also, I think, important to recognize where the craving is coming from. So where is the urge to binge coming from? Is it emotional? Did something happen that pushed you to the place that you're looking for food for comfort? Or are you insulin resistant like me, and perhaps your last 3 meals were not balanced? And so I think you have to like also look at that. And are you crashing? Yeah. So like, what is it? Is it a combination of both? Is it one because of the other? Because that used to happen to me too. If my meals were not balanced, then my hormones weren't balanced, which meant that I wasn't balanced, which meant that I would spiral over things that I didn't necessarily need to spiral about. So it was like the unbalancedness was like causing the emotional reaction. So like you kind of have to like reconcile with that.
You are so wise. And we could go on about this for so long, but we are coming to the close of our time here, and we want to hear a bit more about the fertility piece. So Caitlin, you had a question that you were wanting to ask.
Totally. So Nicki, you explained earlier during your first IUI that the numbers came back like less than optimal, on the border of being normal or not for your spouse. And you have made some major health strides. And that is something that doesn't happen in a vacuum. Like, it's not just like, and Nicki did everything to lose weight. Nicki's spending this time with a trainer. What is your husband doing while you're with the trainer? Nicki's cooking these balanced meals. What is your husband eating next to the balanced meals? There are things that can improve sperm parameters. And so I guess I just wonder a little bit about, maybe not so much the numbers, unless you want to comment on those, but more so like, what has your partner been like in this journey for you? How has he been supportive? What habits has he changed alongside of you that have been helpful?
He's honestly like the best human. I couldn't ask for a better partner in all of this. He's unbelievably supportive. He like knows full well that as we move into egg retrieval next month, he is going to need to be my brain for like part of it. He's like put me in coach, like he's ready. Like I couldn't ask for a better human. He definitely has changed some habits. He takes vitamin D and CoQ10 and some other supplements as well, just to like help things. He is a really big like craft beer guy, loves to try different craft beers, has cut down on the amount of beer significantly, and moved to like bubbly water or just water. When I was in keto days, used to make us 2 meals so that he didn't feel obligated to eat the like super low carb meals, but I don't really do that anymore with like the PCOS balanced meals. Like if we're having chicken and salad, that's what he's eating too. He's eating chicken and salad. Or the only time I'll make a a separate kind of dish for him as if we're doing like a pasta based situation. And that's only because I have a gluten intolerance and tend to like go towards the like higher protein specialty pastas that are more expensive, and he doesn't. So he'll just eat the regular pasta, but like he definitely has picked up on some of the more balanced habits as well.
When I think about just general, if I could like list off a handful of things for sperm health, if he's not allergic to nuts, going for walnuts and Brazil nuts and like a trail mix as a snack for him, bright colors of fruit and vegetables,
especially bright red.
If he likes fatty fish, eating things like salmon. Like for men, sometimes just saying like, hey, these are your 3 things, not to say that men are stupid and they just need simple, but a lot of times they're not the ones in the kitchen cooking very often. And so saying like, hey, when you're focusing on something, focus on this. Some of those, I know that you're so tapped into things. You've listened to the podcast, you've taken the courses, but just simple reminders, those could be really helpful. And then for sperm, part of why those brightly colored fruits and vegetables can be really helpful is because they have a tendency to struggle in the presence of oxidative damage more so than eggs do. So the brightly colored fruits and vegetables, just increasing antioxidants. You know, I don't know what that costs in winter in Canada, but even if that means like getting frozen and doing a smoothie, because that's less expensive. Yeah,
frozen berries.
Those are really
beets,
powerful things.
Turnips, these things you could eat. Winter vegetables.
And if he doesn't like beets, you could even throw it into a smoothie, something like that. But those are things that come to mind. This whole episode is one big yeah, girl. I tell you this quite often on Instagram when we message, but I just so proud of you. Your fertility story, like I'm tearing up a little bit. This will be one that like, should I have availability when I see that positive pregnancy test and there's like a baby shower, I will want to be on the airplane and joining you. You know, it's interesting having these clients that are kind of like internet friends in a way, but I just love you, Nicki. I'm so thankful that you're willing to come share your story. So thankful that I've gotten to be a part of it. So proud of you. So proud that you just lost 150 pounds without going keto this time. Like, that there can be balance and you can have pasta and enjoy it too is amazing. You're amazing. And I'm really proud of where you've come, and I'm so excited to see what happens.
And just the generational changes you're making, like how your children will relate to food and stress and pleasure and what you're carrying into this next generation. Because, you know, we don't earn babies, and it's not like, oh, now that you've lost 150 pounds, you've like done your penance and now you deserve, you know, to have this medical treatment to get pregnant or to get pregnant in the wild or whatever. But it's like, this is health for generations that you're passing down, and your risks for all kinds of really scary, sad things that can happen to you in pregnancy or happen to your baby are just like bottoming out as you continue to care for yourself. And so it's just wonderful. Congratulations, and thank you for telling us your story.
Thank you very much for having me. I hope at least one person listening.
And we hope to have you back again as your story continues to unfold.
Awesome.
All right, listener.
Anytime.
Well, if you liked this episode, please rate, review, subscribe, share. It helps other people find us, and we hope that you are feeling inspired and encouraged and alive in your journey, because that's why we're doing this. So we'll catch you next time. Hey, it's Sophia. If you love the show and want to continue your health and fertility journey using our resources, head on over to FoodFreedomFertility.com for show notes, links to products and services, information about our guests, and our newsletter. Again, that's FoodFreedomFertility.com. Thanks for listening.